Hello and welcome to the Webflail podcast, the podcast where we interview successful Webflowers about their 3 biggest failures as creative entrepreneurs. Now, obviously, this is the video recording of the podcast, but if you want just the audio, head to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts to listen to the edited version there. Also, I send out a banging newsletter every week called the Webflail Roundup to help you to become a more successful Webflower. So I send you the recording of the podcast, I send you 3 Webflow jobs, and I also send you an article and inspirational websites. So why not go sign up? Just check the link down there or go to webflail.com. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 30 of Webflail, the podcast dedicated to uncovering the greatest failures behind the greatest Webflowers, because success often comes after learning from many failures. I'm your host, Jack, a failure connoisseur, and today my guest is Nancy Peng. I first met Nancy in 2021 when working for an agency that specialised in working with churches in the States. Quite a random job, but at that time, Nancy was the agency's PM. She was extremely organised and detail-orientated. But she was also keen to transition to working in Webflow. And she's worked extremely hard to become a very competent Webflower. So much so that towards the end of last year, she entered the Webflow Speed Build Challenge. And she got into the final 16. Fast forward to now, she works as a Webflow designer and developer for Slam Media and another agency called Adaptable. She is bossing life. I'm so pleased to have a chance to chat to her. Nancy, welcome to the Webflow podcast.
Thank you so much, Jack. That was awesome. Well summarized.
Glad. Yeah, I didn't want to let you down because we worked together. You've changed so much in the course since I worked with you, and now you are high-flying Webflower.
Oh my gosh, I can't. I thank you. That means a lot, and I feel like I'm just busy.
I think you're just one of these people that consistently puts their head down, and they're not necessarily shouting about themselves, but someone needs to shout about them. So this is your chance to share your story and get people talking about Nancy like they should. Speaking of which, let's do a little bit of an introduction on your background, how you came into Webflow, and a little bit more about your story than I just shared there.
Yeah, for sure. This is a very long story, but I guess I started. My background is in mechanical engineering. That's what I went to school for, and I think that's what I chose to do because I really am fascinated about how things work, and I like deconstructing systems and mechanisms and finding out really what's behind it all. And after university and graduating, I worked in oil and gas industry, and I thought I was really happy, and I thought I was successful, and it felt right. Like I was out in the field, getting my coveralls on, my hard hat, just checking out big equipment. And it was really exciting. And then I was laid off. And then that's when I really questioned what's going on. What do I really want to do? And I went traveling for 6 months. I bought a DSL camera because all this time I really liked the idea of photography, but never really practiced it. So that was my first go at traveling solo and photography, and I loved it. I loved it so much. But returning back to Canada, I wasn't ready to let go of my engineering degree or career yet. I was like, I was just starting. So I ended up finding a job, even though it was really hard, in a small consulting firm doing HVAC design for commercial kitchens. Very cool. A lot of people are like, "Oh, wow, you design kitchens. That's awesome." I'm like, it is awesome. But I designed the plumbing and like the kitchen ventilation that you don't really see, but really, if it just isn't working, is when you'll notice. So I'm like, well, I really actually want to do something visual, and I didn't really start my career in like the visual design side of things until I decided to quit my job in 2019 to travel, actually, to travel again. My partner and I went to Japan in 2019. Little do we know that after we quit our jobs that there would be a pandemic when we traveled. So then when we started traveling, we decided to start a traveling blog. And that's when I started building the website. And that was so exciting that I got to feature a lot of the photography I was taking, and also put it online and for people to find inspiration, notes and whatnot. So that was my first website. I built it in Word. Sorry, WordPress. Oh my gosh, so long ago. WordPress, and it was a struggle, but I found it super interesting. And then so we ended up cutting our trip short because of the pandemic. Came back after 6 months, and coming back from that trip, we stayed at his parents' place on Vancouver Island. And because of the pandemic, they were being really careful, which means we're also being very careful because we stayed with them. And partway, I needed to find a job. And I think a lot of my focus was on finding something that was remote, something that I can do not going into the office, because that was really important. So I started thinking in the engineering career I was trying to be in all this time, it wasn't something that was very likely in terms of remote work. So I started looking into, hey, I can do web design, graphic design, and a lot of it I can do remotely. So that's when I really looked into it and started learning a lot of it online, learning about Webflow, finding out that it was so cool. And I rebuilt our blog in Webflow. And that's when I started really officially working Webflow, and then learning more about it eventually. So I enrolled in Flux Academy in the master course, and that's when I got into the community and started meeting people. And I had a hard time finding freelance jobs, so I partook in a lot of the challenges that they had, which was really helpful because it gave a lot of good feedback. I put myself out there and was able to display my work in my portfolio. And that's when I started getting some of my jobs. And also that's when I started working as the PM at the church agency. As a PM, yeah. So I started as a PM thinking that I would eventually work towards learn more about web design, the whole process, and go into it. And following that was a interesting journey, as I'm sure you covered in your episode back in episode 20. It was interesting because we learned we were trying to start a agency for them, and just learning about the building blocks of an agency and what worked, what didn't, really quickly. And also trying to get paid as a freelancer was a struggle. So a lot of lessons learned there. And then eventually, I found other work and full-time work now. So at SLAM Media Lab, and I also work part-time at Adaptable. A lot of it was just developing and practicing in my skills in both areas. Really, I think my focus was really getting good at something and getting good through practice, and that's through a lot of work and exposure to everything. And that's exactly everything I'm doing right now still. So yay. I think I covered it all.
Okay, epic. I'm just going to recap. So essentially, you always knew you were interested in creative stuff, but your degree wasn't so much in creative stuff. So there was potentially a little bit of tension there, even though you enjoyed your degree. It sounds like you've got quite a lot of left and right brain thinking. Like you're quite an analytical, detail-oriented person, but you really enjoy the visual side of design and design thinking. And then you found this holy matrimony in the Webflow agency that we both worked with. And you were doing PM stuff, but you were also in the background doing a lot of website building for yourself and hoping to transition. And then you found this job with Slam Media Lab and Adaptable, and now here you are as a pro Webflower.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's how, I saw you a couple of years ago when we met, where you were very, very good at the PM side of things, but you were also, really keen to get building and also building stuff far better than I was, frankly. So what I'm interested in is you've chosen to go down the kind of employed route, which a lot of Webflowers are like, well, if I can build websites, why don't I just freelance? Like, I could just full-time freelance. And freelancing takes many different shades. Some people are freelancing for agencies. Some people are freelancing for themselves, trying to get their own clients. Some people are freelancing on retainers for companies. But you've chosen to get a full-time role in an agency. Is that right?
Yes.
And why is that, if you don't mind me asking?
There are a lot of different factors. I think first one, getting to work with people, like the same people regularly is, I find that I like that connection a lot, and being able to work together as part of a team and building the company is something I am passionate about. I love like improving things, making small changes here and there, and I think that being a part of a team full time, I'm able to do that better. And so that's one of the main reasons. The second reason was because I'm so new to freelancing, I don't have like uh, years of income to prove that I'm a good freelancer, and that's really important for banks for mortgages. And so, in order to get a mortgage to purchase a house in Canada, that is something that I needed to prioritize, and definitely was something that I had top of mind that I wanted to do. So
that makes a lot of sense then.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that sometimes people try and freelance without fully understanding how difficult it is? Because I think a lot of people come into Webflow being like, I'm going to make like 10K a client or whatever, and actually they quickly realize that it's a lot harder than that. Do you think that's fair?
I think it's very fair. I think that when you think of freelancing, you don't really think about the difficulty in finding work and finding good clients and delivering. I mean, you think about delivering really awesome work, which is a big part of it, but the really difficult part is really finding work and finding good clients and dealing with that and like getting paid. Those three things are so important that maybe not talked about as much as, oh, hey, I built this really awesome website for this client, and maybe the client is terrible. You don't know what's the backstory. So yes, I think that people don't know what maybe freelancing really entails, and it's a lot.
I also think the thing is that a lot of people come into the Webflow space if they're like me, from like, I don't know, more of design interest. They're like, oh wow, I can do animations and stuff. But frankly, like copywriting, SEO, like project management, like there's so many skill sets that are needed to have a successful client project. Like, forget getting clients. Like, once you get them, then what? Like onboarding, offboarding, training, like how do you manage, like creating a brand identity, all of that stuff. I mean, admittedly, if you're a freelancer who's really specifically good at developing, then maybe that's all you do and offer clients. But in my experience, clients say, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" And you're like, "Yeah, I kind of can." And then you kind of try and make it work. But yeah, freelancing solo is I think a lot harder than people. People say.
No, I agree. Freelancing and without like proper community is very, very hard. Like you don't know what other people are doing, offering or charging, or you just don't know. And whether or not you get the work, I feel like it's almost like applying for jobs. You get not a lot of feedback, but you put yourself out there anyway, not knowing really what's going to happen. And yeah, it's definitely really tough.
And can I just circle back to you, how you learned Webflow? Because it sounds like you did courses to start with, and then you started getting work, but you kind of learned on the job, as it were. Is that fair? I mean, you had enough knowledge to be able to do the client work, but then you needed to just do it and learn from videos and stuff as the problems came that you needed to overcome. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so. Like I took classes, or I went online. Webflow University is great. That's how I got started. I learned how awesome it was, and then yeah, I purchased courses to take online, so I knew a little bit more, not just about Webflow, but also web design in general, because that's also very important. But yes, I'd say ultimately I learned a lot of what I know today on the job. A lot of it's through a lot of practice, and it's hard to get that practice without having work, or having just like projects that you try and do on your own. So I definitely got started on my own, and then got really good after practice. And I did a lot of that building for Adaptable, just building. That's all I do, building Webflow. And then I also do a lot of it for Slam. Yeah.
I think it's important to say, though, that a lot of the time people say, "Oh, I can't. I'm not good enough," and stuff. Like, no, you're not. You're not good enough. But you're going to get good enough by just kind of going head over biscuit into projects and working it out from there, because that's what you do. You're a problem solver. So I think that's really encouraging to hear. And the other thing that you said there is that from the money that you earn from your full-time job, you could pay for courses. And I think that's a really important thing to say, that a lot of people try and freelance kind of straight out the bat and quit their job, and they're like, I'm a freelancer now. And it's like, no, you take, the money that you're earning is your stability. You can pay for courses, you can start freelancing on the side. And then when that becomes, difficult to manage both those two things, then you can transition more to freelancing. But I think that's important to say.
For sure. For sure. I agree. And I think that it's really important to note that you just have to start somewhere. And I think I was really, really overwhelmed when I first tried to learn everything on my own. They're just good thing that there's a lot out there on the internet, but it can also be super overwhelming. Even to this day, like there's so many things, so many new things, so many new tools that you can check out, so many things that I'm like, oh, I want to do this and this and this, and I just don't have time. So you really need to prioritize, hey, this is what I want to do. I learned the course, I need to get started somewhere. So you need to take action. So I think that's the very important piece.
Take action. Quote of the episode so far. Hey guys, just a quick one to say that I write the Webflail newsletter every week, and it's meant for you to become a more successful freelancer. Check it out at webflail.com, or just look in the link just down there and sign up. Why not? It's free. It's going to be really helpful. Check it out. Back to the episode. Let's get into your failures, Nancy. Tell me about failure number 1, not willing or recognizing the signs to pivot with client projects.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought about this failure a lot, and I think of it as partially about my career too, my career choices in terms of going into engineering, and knowing that I enjoy visual arts or visual design, but I just never thought I would make a career out of it. So not like pivoting to think that, oh, I explore it more and see what the possibility there are for that kind of career. But I wouldn't say that's a huge failure for the career part, because I really enjoy being an engineer too, and also accomplishing that. But failure in pivoting in projects, recognizing the signs. I think that projects, they can move very quickly. Things change. And when I first started, I got really frustrated about things changing. I like things in my control. I like things like, oh, we were going to deliver this time, or like whatnot. And clients come to me, they're like, oh, well, we have the set like delay. We couldn't get this done, or they changed their mind. So working with a lot of cool projects I work on, a lot of cool clients like Hollywood film production groups, like government contracting websites, or like even Microsoft partner organizations. It happens everywhere. Like changes happen, and instead of being frustrated about it, where where I used to like always get frustrated, I now learn to adapt a lot faster, trying to work with them, be helpful as much as I can. And I think a lot of my frustration came down to, hey, I still put it on myself to deliver the same capacity for the same deadline. And it really wasn't expected of me to because of the changes. But I still thought that, oh, if I had to communicate that, it shows that I am not capable, that oh, I'm not able to deliver. But when really in reality, that's not it at all. So I put that a lot of it on myself. So recognizing when to pivot and how to pivot to help the overall project has been definitely one of the failures that I'm learning a lot from, and being able to do a lot better managing that as well.
Do you think you saw yourself as incapable by not hitting deadlines because you thought, I don't know, the customer's always right, and like I have said that I will get this done, so I need to get this done even if they can't provide me the copy or any of the assets? Or how did you why do you think you had that mindset?
I think I like to please people. I like to make people happy, and that was a big part of it. And I think to this day, it's still something I think that it's a big part of me. I like to make my clients happy. I like to work with happy people, right? So I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to do that. So a big part of it, even though it's still a big part of me, that I tell myself it's not me, and we just need to work together to communicate what is the root cause of things and why we're changing, making sure we're still delivering with the end goal in mind. And that is ultimately the most important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really important to cut yourself some slack sometimes, I think, because if the client messes up, they don't get told off because they're paying you to do the job.
Yeah.
So, on the other foot, like you can't do your job unless they provide you the assets to, it's like being asked to cook a meal without getting given any ingredients or any idea of what you're cooking. Like, how are you meant to cook? So, it definitely sounds like a healthy thing to realize that you are not the problem. And you should not put yourself under that pressure. So really, really helpful to understand that and to share that. Wow, I feel like we're getting some things off your chest, Nancy. This sounds like an important episode for you.
It is. I think it's so great. I like being here. I was so nervous, really, and I think actually being here is like, oh, this is actually really nice, and really, it's like one of those things that you just gotta do it and learn along the way, and
Definitely, life's a journey. You're gonna mess up, and that's totally fine. All right, are we ready to move on to failure number 2?
Sure, let's do it.
Tell me about failure number 2 then. Failing to recognize your expertise in the space.
Yeah, this one is really big as well. And I feel like I always feel this way in my career so far. Like in engineering, I was a new grad. I went into the field like, oh, I don't know what half the thing is. Like a lot of it is learning on the job. And I didn't feel like I have an experience on the job to do a lot of my job. So I rely on a lot of people's expertise and experience. They can be wrong though. So it's hard to kind of select whose advice and like whose experience I depend on. And that is also a lot of it in my current career, just designing, Webflow developing, recognizing that I am really an expert in this field, that I do it every day, every day for the last 2 years. And it's something I fail to kind of recognize or remind myself that when speaking with clients, or just if I get pushback on feedback design, I need to recognize that my opinion matters and that it's valid. Instead of thinking that, oh, I just got started in this career, I don't know what I'm doing, my background, like people think that my background is in engineering, not even design. Like, well, do you know what you're talking about? But yes, I do know what I'm talking about. So just really recognizing that. Yeah.
And do you feel like I mean, it's easy to say, I need to recognize that I have expertise in a space, but how has that, actually played out for you in client meetings and stuff? Are there things that you say, or you push back on with clients now that you didn't have the confidence to do, or kind of how is that playing out for you?
Yeah. So I think that it really comes down to communicating with the clients, and depending on what their style is, or like how they like to provide feedback, a lot of times they can get carried away about like little details. Oh, I want this button like in the middle of the space, and like not here, or like I want this a certain color. And we get a lot of that, but really it's reminding them ultimately what we're designing for. The main goal is to make this a tool to help you do something, and is it really ultimately helping to achieve that? And if it's not, we can come back to it if needed. But like I reason with them, I tell them the rationale behind, like the reasons behind why certain design decisions were made, and I with that they understand and they can make a better choice, or like ultimately it's their website, so they can do what they want. But my goal and why they hire me is to really help them so that they can have a really good tool. And so it's to disagree with them if that's in my opinion, right? And so yeah, really recognizing that I shouldn't hold back opinions even though they may be against what they think. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's interesting, this idea of pushing back, because I think a lot of people think, well, no, I'm getting paid to do a job for this person, so I'm just going to do what they say. But actually, if the client knew how to do what they wanted, and they knew exactly what they wanted, then they'd probably do it themselves. So what they're doing is actually paying you not just to do the thing that they say, but also be a kind of accomplice to work through the problems. They might say something really confidently, but actually say, well, why is that? You just ask why. And that question often diffuses a lot of do this, do that, do that. I want this change. I want this change. Because you just say, well, why? And if they can't
Yeah.
give you a good why, then they've often, answered that problem for themselves. They're just like, oh yeah, actually, you know what? Forget that, because that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. I just want to say I love that, and that's something that I'm definitely doing a lot more, asking why. And I'm like, do I have the right like place to like ask why? Like, of course, of course there are like I like there is valid reasons to ask why, and we want to get down to like the root cause of why they're feeling a certain way.
Yeah, I think why is the most powerful question you can ask. And it might sound like you're just slowing down the client, and you might be. I found when I first started asking why, I was a bit scared too, because I was like, should I even ask why? Like, they want it, so I just do it, right?
Yeah.
But actually, clients look at you differently because they see you more like a consultant, because
Mhm.
what you're doing is you're really trying to get to the root of their thinking. Is this helping them with the problem that they are trying to achieve? Because if not, then it's probably not that actually going to help them in the long run. So you're trying to talk them through that type of thing. And I am by no means a master at this, but I have been in calls with founders of agency that do this really, really well. And that's when I first started learning the power of why. So if a client is just telling you what to do, like a waiter or something, then remind yourself to ask why.
Love that.
Is there anything else that you have started doing, Nancy, that you would recommend anyone listening to maybe think about if they're just getting pushed around unnecessarily by a client or being asked to do things which maybe don't necessarily make sense?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to like some people can communicate in all sorts of different ways, and recognizing that a lot of times it's not helping the project. Like, oh, I said we're gonna get finished, or the client would be like, oh, I thought I'm gonna get this like this and this date. I told you exactly like what I wanted, and I said it in like this and this email, and like doing all that is not, and then like the response to that, you'll feel very defensive, and you want to respond with, oh, hey, I told you, like, in response, I did everything you asked, and such. But really, all that conversation, it's not really helping like move the project forward. And I think really need to, I learned this really recently, just dealing with a client, and it just having to recognize and take a step back that this whole thing that we are engaged in conversation about is not helping the project move forward, the ultimate goal. So really, let's like dial back and like figure out why we're feeling upset, and then recognize that this is not helpful, and then we can move on to like the task that we really need to get done to meet the goals that you want. So
love that. So listening, instead of saying instead of engaging in a conflict,
yeah,
what you're doing is you're turning that conflict into a discussion by saying, okay, I hear how you're feeling. I know how you're feeling. What would you like us to do to change that feeling from a negative one to a positive one? And then you're kind of using that power or anger to turn it into kind of action steps moving forward. I think that's really, really powerful. And something that this reminds me of Corey Moen, who's the senior designer at Webflow. He talked about this in episode 7 of the podcast. So if you're listening, listen to that one after. But he says that using data whenever possible really, really help with decision making. So if a client says, I want this button to be red or green or whatever, what he can do, or what he might do, is to like A/B test those buttons, and then say to the client, hey, we actually tested this and we found that button A, which was the original design, worked a lot better. And if you're trying to achieve this goal, then hey, I've got data to back this up, which kind of means that the client looks at you and says, wow, they're actually going the extra mile to work this out for me. But also, hey, this is a closed discussion. We've tested it. It works like this. Let's keep it like this. So that's another thing that you could do.
Love that. Yes, I would agree. I can see how that works really well.
Yeah, if a client is really, really trying to push you do some kind of design decision, then maybe just testing it. Pardon moi. Okay. Wow, we are covering a hell of a lot of ground here. Tell me about failure number 3, failing to ask for specific feedback.
Yes, I think, this one's really important because when I first started, I would show my work and kind of I still feel nervous about sharing my work, and just putting out there, oh, what do you think? Or here's the design. Tell me everything you're feeling or like want to say, questions, concerns, everything. But really, when I do that for clients and they come back with a lot of different things, it's not exactly super helpful. What I find that the failure in that is really I need to specify, hey, these are the things that I worked on specifically. I'm looking for feedback for these general areas, or these areas specifically. Like, do you feel that this gives the user the feeling that of columnists that you wanted specified in like your brand. Is it helping with that specifically, and comment on that. So really being specific in, hey, what do you think of this in regards to so and so, and yeah.
So you're phrasing the question, what do you think of X
Yes.
in regards to Y?
Yes.
And that's how you would phrase the feedback, rather than saying, what do you think?
Yes, I think, yeah, very important to kind of understand what you need feedback on. A lot of times when you do design, you do iterations of design instead of doing just specific things. Great.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, go for it. Okay.
Okay, we're back in the game.
You're still alive?
Sorry.
It's okay. Are you okay?
Yeah, I've been really ill. Well, I was really ill last week. So I think it's the tailwind of that.
Gotcha.
I cut you off as you were saying really juicy, good stuff.
It's okay. I'll try and get back into it.
Yeah, we'll have to just. Shall I ask you the question that you were doing that answer for, or were you?
I was answering. So you talked about the method of me asking for feedback, and I was going to like iterations of like, oh, because, yeah. Sorry. How do we want to be?
Shall I do the? This is how you ask a question. The how you.
Yeah.
Yikes, sorry.
You got it.
Okay. So wait, what was the question again?
So I answered about like, oh, I like ask the client like, oh, this is the design, or
what do you think of X in regards to Y? Wasn't that? Okay.
Exactly.
So Nancy, just to be clear, what you would do with a client, or rather than asking, what do you think of the design? You're saying, what do you like or dislike about X in regards to Y? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I think being very specific in what exactly I'm asking for is very important, so they can give you a good, quick yes or no, or like reasons why they think that it's not exactly what they like or what they're hoping for, instead of, oh, hey, instead of this button that I'm looking for feedback on, I don't like the logo being red in this other area, because we do a lot of design iterations in our work, and a lot of it can be on different parts of the website, and providing feedback on different parts of the website, even though we appreciate their feedback, always appreciate the feedback, it's just not helping move the part that we want feedback forward, and just like going back and forth.
This might be an important time to ask you, what is the the process to get to the website build stage? Like, do you do brand identities with Slam Media and Adaptable, or are they providing their own brand identity and then you go into design, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it really varies depending on clients, what they already have. A lot of times they do come to us with, hey, this is our existing website and this is our existing brand. And it's important to identify whether they love the brand or like they're looking for something new because they have a shift in their company or organization. So determining whether or not they need something new or they have something existing that they love or that we need to create something new for them. So that, yeah, that's something we do at Slam. And then from there, we talk about, oh, hey, this is the brand. What are some of the goals that you want your website to help you with? And then determining what that looks like in terms of user journey and looking at what pages are required for people to learn about you, to find that, to build trust with your users so that they can confidently do the certain things that you're looking for them to do. And with that, we've built content, we lay out the content, we build wireframes, and then sometimes we help with the copywriting, but a lot of times the clients prefer to do their own copywriting, and we give them pointers and edit depending on what they come back with. And from there, we go ahead and design out the whole thing, given what their brand identity is and what they're trying to achieve and all the feelings that they want the user to feel while going through their online experience. And then from there, well, then we get their green light approval to say, hey, build this. And a lot of times there are changes and that comes back even after at the design or development phase, which I still find a little frustrating sometimes, just because we're like, oh, we like basically curated this whole process, perfected it to do a certain things, but things change. So yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna cough one more. Sorry, I was on the edge of coughing while you were giving that answer. Like I was like,
suffocating. Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me what the next. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Bill. Bill's gonna edit this. So hey, Bill. I'm really sorry that I've ruined this episode.
Bill's your brother, right?
Yeah, he's that guy.
Nice.
Yeah, he looks the oldest, but he's the youngest. Okay, let's go. Get back into podcasting mode. Sorry. Okay, so even though you've got this perfect process, humans are imperfect, and they change things throughout that process. Do you have any advice for someone that is maybe having difficulty getting the client through this client process because there's so many revisions on the way? Do you think there's some nugget or knowledge that you could give them to help move that client through that process as quickly as possible, or anything that Slam Media or Adaptable do to help that?
Yeah. So it is always really difficult when you're in that situation, being delayed a lot, weeks, if not months, trying to push out something when the client either is just too busy to get you what you need or is just need some help. I think what's really important is really going back to the very first discovery call where you're talking about, hey, what are some of the goals that you want to work towards? Give them some reasons and like why they want to finish this. And this is ultimately why we are partnered together to do this together, right? And sometimes that the client just need a little help. Maybe they're just overwhelmed by the amount of things that they need to do or things that they've never done before, like having to write copy is really difficult. And so like giving them pointers on, hey, like maybe they are good writers, maybe, but they don't know really how to write for website. That's another thing too. Giving them really good pointers, letting them that we are available to support them if they need it, and that a lot of times hopping on a call is helpful so that they know that they get reassured, oh, this is really simple, it's really not that bad. So I think ultimately, long answer short, get back to the goal and figure out what are some of the simple things that you can do to help your clients, whether that be like hopping on a call to chat through some of their concerns or like questions or hesitations, and or just providing them with more tips here and there, to help them along, and kind of looking at the whole project as a whole, saying, oh, we are probably 2 weeks away from like being done, setting them up for some of the expectations so that they know it well in advance what to expect.
Yeah. And if a client is taking a long while to get you content, for example, photos or copy
Yeah.
or whatever, and the project's getting really, really delayed, do you have some kind of advice about like costing for that type of thing? Because I think a lot of people listening might be like, well, if a client's taking months to get back to me, like I can't, like, what? I'm just going to end that project, or kind of how would you approach that type of problem?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's something it's something that everyone, it's a problem that everyone sees in industry, because life happens, right? And a lot of the clients sometimes we work with are small business owners, and a lot of things, the days are crazy, so they really don't know what, even though they want a brand new website, but they just can't reprioritize this in their day to day. I think that um, I don't know if I have a great answer for how to go about maybe saying, hey, because this is taking this amount of weeks more, we'll need to charge more. Or whether that looks like, hey, this is a specific period that I'm solely focused on doing your work. If we are going above that, then there is like a flat fee. Um, we haven't really implemented any of that really, because we trust that we know life happens, and we don't really want the client to feel that pressure. But at the same time, I think what we're working on is to really move on with, let's say, if we're missing assets, then we drop in just stock imagery. If they're missing copy, then we drop in some lorem ipsum with the link of the text that is needed there, so that they have to go in ultimately if they want the site to be completed. It's on their court, to complete, take it to the finish line. But we put everything out there for them. We give them a lot of different chances so that we can engage, so that we can do it together.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's potentially a really helpful thing to do, is to set up the site visually and have everything there. And then it's like, okay, you come in and edit the copy.
Yeah.
Because, and that's the other thing as well, if you've got kind of like an idea of what the client might want, then it's far easier to edit like bad copy than to just write good copy afresh. And that's another way that I've found it to be quite helpful to try and move a project along.
For sure, yeah.
Cool. Sorry. I'm about to cough again. There it is. Oh, okay. Nancy, you've given us so many gems these last, what is it, 47 minutes. And I must say that you have a lot of kind of gold dust feedback, not just from, being a Webflower, but also as a PM, because I think that's a really fascinating thing that you've had experience of both sides of the coin. For someone that's managing designers or developers, managing clients, but then also doing the work yourself. So thanks for sharing all of that great feedback. But now we come to a very important next question. Are you ready?
Yes. I don't know.
Okay, let's try it. What is your next failure going to be?
Wow. Next failure. Okay, I think I got a good one. In lines with asking for feedback, I think something that I'm focusing on this year a lot is to be more present online in the community. There's such a great community around Webflow and Webflowers, web designer, and that I want to be more active in the spaces because I got a lot of help in the community when I first started. And I think that my failure would be being too busy with everything to be present, but I want to make that a priority so that I can show off more of my work. I'm not a very public person, so that's really difficult for me to do. So I can see that it's going to be something that I will actively have to work on. But yes, that's definitely it. And also probably asking for help. I like to do a lot of things on my own, and like it's that mentality that if I delegate or say I can't do something, saying no, it's that I can't do it. But in reality, it's not it at all. So asking for help and also just showing off my work, sharing my work.
Awesome. So are you going to do that on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or
Oh man,
kind of approach?
I will be doing. Okay. I will be doing it in the community, so on in Webflow experts chats on Slack, probably somehow on LinkedIn. I'm thinking Instagram as well. I've been really private about my career transition into web designer from engineering, just because a lot of my friends are in engineering. So I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to share that yet, but here I am 2 years later. But yes. So yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn, Webflow communities.
Okay, awesome. And what is the next couple of years looking like for you? Are you like, I want to work for, agencies for the next 2 years and beyond, maybe? Or are you thinking, hey, Nancy Peng agency sounds quite a nice name. How am I going to do that? Is that what are you feeling?
Honestly, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I love the clients I get to work with right now, and I think I have a really good team to work with at Slam Media. So I can see myself continuing on this path. But also, it's interesting too. There are a lot of opportunities locally in Vancouver. A lot of local shops that need help. So I can see. It's hard to say, but I love what I'm doing right now. So would love to continue to work with all these really interesting and impact-driven clients. And I think for sure what I'm going to continue to do.
Awesome. Nancy, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. If anyone wants to message you about anything you've said during this episode, where should they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I also have my portfolio set up using a Webflow staging site. So you can find me there as well. I need to update my portfolio, so that is also something I'll be working on this year as well. But yes, LinkedIn is probably best.
Awesome. And that's just Nancy Peng, so Peng on LinkedIn, guys. Nancy,
Yes.
Thanks so much. Is there any last parting words that you want to say to anyone here?
Oh man.
Live, laugh, love.
Yes. Just go out there and take action. I think that's so important. I need to also listen to that too and do it.
Take action. Great. Love that. Quote of the episode. All right. Thanks so much, Nancy. Bye.